A couple of years ago, CCWD did a wonderful thing by authorizing or enacting a scholarship for a graduating senior. I was at Bret Hart award ceremony last Wednesday night, and it was just wonderful. Organizations, committees, personal, out of personal scholarships were awarded. Close to 3 hours worth of scholarships to the graduating seniors just at Bret Hart. I have no idea what was done at Calaveras High. And I was very, very pleased to know, to know that CCWD awarded a scholarship, but I was just very disappointed to see that no one awarded the scholarship. They just handed it out to the lucky participant, but I think you would have made yourself or gotten a little bit higher esteem had CCWD been represented. They made no comment other than the fact that this is, this was a scholarship from CCWD, so I think you missed a real opportunity. So maybe you can just remember that personal perception is very, very important. The other issue that I'm bringing forth this morning from a constituent, I got just an email, and he was talking about SB 1168, and this is the put forth by Democratic Senator Fran Pavley of Agora Hills, and it's going to ask local agencies to develop plans to manage groundwater. And how long have we been hearing that? And so it was passed in the Senate, and now it's gone on to the Assembly. So I certainly would like for us as ratepayers to hear what's going to be happening with this SB 1168 and how, we will be impacted here in Calaveras County. I thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bertha. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, consent agenda, we have nothing on our consent agenda today. Go to old business. 4A, discussion action regarding district position on SB 1199, Mokelumne River Wild and Scenic Rivers Act designation. Mitchell Dion.
Yes, this was a last-minute request for the agenda by Director Stump, but obviously there's a fair amount of communications going around regarding SB 1199. Ultimately, this was put here for an opportunity for the board to discuss whether or not there's additional action we're interested in taking or how we would like to align our current position. Our current position has been to oppose, and we have had certain levels of engagement with both the author of the bill as well as the advocate. Amador County Water has been in the lead. We have supported Amador County Water's position. There's been some modification to the draft language which addresses future water rights or water right applications within the bill, but ultimately that's where it's at. So I know a couple of the directors have had opportunities and wanted to make some comments, so I was throwing it back to the board for discussion.
Don.
As Mountain County's president, I've been real active as far as pushing Mountain County's opposed position forward, both with Senator Bigelow and Senator Berryhill's office. This is, I don't know what took place yesterday in terms of the Senate, if the bill was brought forward and how it was acted upon. There was some optimism that there was going to be enough votes to oppose this and send it back. Mountain Counties has been in a position where we would really like to see a ironclad boilerplate, wild and scenic language that could be used throughout the entire region, not just for the Mokelumne. we were in the process of doing that with Foothill Conservancy during Mokwise, but we kind of got, it kind of got pushed forward ahead of the collaborative process. So we'd really like to bring it back to the collaborative process and get some real good language that protects wild and scenic, and at the same time protects the residents of all of the counties involved with all of the rivers in the mountain counties area. I know this is an uphill battle, and we're putting a lot of time into it to try and get this back to the talking stage, but at this point, it's pretty time consuming, and it's one of those kind of things that we've only got about 5 more weeks in order to get this back to the drawing board before it gets passed. I think it's very, very important for not only mountain counties, but CCWD.
Yeah, I could make a comment. Oh, somewhat along the same lines, I received an email yesterday showing the amended language that went into the bill proper. And let's see, on page 9 of the bill, the strikeout of lines 17 and 18 was inserted substantial language addressing some of the issues that I know I expressed a concern about. One of them was the ability to be able to have continuing data monitoring devices if they're needed in the scenario of potential climate change impacts. And for me, the bill comes down to the language in paragraph 8, which states, "Nothing in this subdivision shall prejudice, delay, interfere with, or affect in any way a water rights application by AWA, JVID, CPUD, or CCWD, and consideration by the State Water Resources Control Board of a water rights application for new water supply projects upstream of the McCalmy River." I think the interpretation of that language is going to be critical to whatever decision is made. If a water right implies a future water right, I think it probably should be stated, and I would like to see that particular word inserted into the language. And if that's indeed the case, then maybe we're a lot closer to reaching some sort of an accord with the wild and scenic than I thought had existed prior to this. But I agree with Don in the sense that these are issues that are probably much broader than just the McCalmy River and need to be addressed from the perspective of how do we address the future of flows in any Sierra Nevada river that's above the rim dams, that doesn't have an anadromous fish flow or fish population, and probably is more of a watershed protection device. There are arguments on both sides, and I think we need to get this one clarified. But there is a move in the direction of addressing one of the big concerns that Amador Water had, I know, and perhaps some of the others, and that has to do with future water rights applications. And if we can get some satisfaction there, this could possibly work. But frankly, I'm not entirely sure we're there yet, so we're going to have to continue pursuing this process. That's all I have.
Thank you.
So are you saying that the language was changed in the Senate?
This was what was
What's being
inserted.
proposed?
This is what was inserted.
By who and when?
This was in Hancock's office, and I received a phone call or a notification that these were the amendments were being proposed. I received those. I think I sent a copy to Mitch. And then I received this email yesterday showing where this language was inserted into the bill.
Who proposed the amendments?
I'm not entirely sure. It probably was a combination of both Foothill Conservancy, but my guess is that after substantial conversations with both myself, Foothill Conservancy, and I know that Amador Water went in the following day and had a conversation. My sense is that the Hancock staffers put this together.
So you went and saw Senator Hancock?
I had an appointment with her. I think I mentioned that at the last board meeting. I was going in to visit her.
Yeah, and I think the board mentioned that we wanted our general manager to be our representative.
Well, she had reached out to me, so, I mean, that's fine. I did what I did. Beyond that point, I haven't really done anything else. If that's still the will of the board, that's perfectly all right
Well,
with me.
I don't know if it's the will of the board today, but it was the will of the board the last time we had this discussion.
Well, I think it was left that I would discuss this with Mitch and we'd figure it out. And my sense was that, since the outreach had been to me, that to switch horses in the middle of the
Or
street
did
might
you,
have
so
been.
did you and Mitch talk it over and
Oh, yeah.
decided that
Oh,
you would go
absolutely.
instead?
Well, I think so.
Is that how-
Wasn't that?
Well, the invite was to Director Dean, not to me. And I did meet with Senator Hancock's staff, and part of the discussions that we've had was looking for the satisfaction of future water rights. But that's a bit nebulous in chasing, whether there's going to be molecules for water or not. And it's anticipating future conditions, which frankly, you can't write into a bill. So Director Dean followed up with the appointment that was requested by the senator, and I had follow-up discussions with the staff.
All right, well, I'm pretty unhappy about that. I mean, I thought that the board was very clear that we wanted to speak to the senator's office with the entire will of the board, and that our general manager was probably the best person, unbiased person to handle that. I thought it was pretty clear.
Well, I guess I didn't because I went ahead and did it. And besides which, I think you're creating an issue of something that's fundamentally a non-issue. The people from Camera asked me to follow up with this. I think my position with the Aqua region gives me some substance to be able to carry on this conversation. And I don't believe that I represented anybody's interests but what were expressed here and were expressed by other people. So,
Well, but, yeah, see, we wouldn't know, because we weren't invited, we didn't get an opportunity to have
Well,
that discussion.
it's-
I've had,
I would have loved to have had you come along if you were interested or had the time. And that was not, from my perspective, a closed meeting at all.
well, I just think it's an example of a director going farther than our responsibilities are. We're here to direct staff, and I think we're relying far too much on board members to do staff's work. And I think staff needs to learn to speak up when that's going on, and say something. We're not staff members. I appreciate a lot of the work you guys do on these committees, but I think it's a very, very important issue that, we should be having conversations with our Board of Supervisors. Quite frankly, I've gotten a couple emails from Chris Wright about wanting to talk to me on a one-on-one level, but, it hasn't worked out that well. I, for one, want to ask the Board of Supervisors to reconsider their recommendation for Wild and Scenic. I think that there may be some changes on their board. I think that some of the board members, now that they understand what is at stake, or now that they're learning what's at stake, and I think we're still just learning what's at stake, that this thing it's on a ridiculous speed train that there's no purpose for it to go so fast, except for to get passed before too much anger and too much information comes out. I think that there's a member of the Board of Supervisors and Senator Hancock's staff who we've never met, never voted for. I'm appalled that Senator Hancock has produced a bill that will potentially take the future of the water reservations for the west end of the county, something that there's no question in my mind that we'll need. And we've got an Oakland senator trying to railroad this thing through. I don't know why everybody in the enterprise right now, I wish I was a member of their staff here, because they're doing a terrible job promoting they're doing an excellent job promoting Wild and Scenic. They're doing a terrible job representing all the agencies that have opposed it. And literally, all the agencies have opposed it, except for the Board of Supervisors. They're standing alone here, as far as I'm concerned, like fools. And I think that this board needs to get a little more angry and quit trying to say, well, look, we're under a time frame and we gotta make concessions, we gotta do all this stuff. We're gonna do that instead of ask our Board of Supervisors to reconsider.
You don't think that's been done?
What's that?
You don't think that's been done? Are
It
you-
has
are
not
you-
been done.
Well.
I mean, we're,
information-
because we speak as a voice. And when one member goes off and does one thing by himself, that's all he's doing. But we have not yet, and that's my proposal, is that we make a recommendation for the Board of Supervisors to reconsider their.
It's been done, it's been done.
It has not been done officially, Bob. You may have done it on a personal level, but.
No. Yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, they agreed to bring it back to workshop. The issue is, are they gonna get it done in time to address this particular bill?
Which is my point.
Well, it's
mean,
not your
what
point. The point
is
is,
the-
the point
what
is,
the hell's the hurry
there was a
here?
motion and a second to bring it back to the board. Now, I don't know how more specific or how more formal you can get than that.
Who made the recommendation? I mean, who?
Cliff Edson, and it was supported by.
No, I'm asking that we work for CCWD. We work for our ratepayers.
We weren't there yesterday. This was something that was actually,
Again,
interestingly
we
enough.
weren't there
interesting-
yesterday.
Yeah,
Was
interestingly.
staff there yesterday? Was it an
All right,
agendized item?
Interestingly enough.
Hey, guys,
it was.
let's keep,
Let me
no,
finish.
Bob, let's keep it
No.
at a civil level,
Well-
and both Jeff and
Well,
Bob, please.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yesterday, interestingly enough, two directors from Amador Water were there. Art Toy and Rich Farrington, not staff, directors. And during public comment, made a presentation to the Board of Supervisors, asking them to reconsider. At that point in time, Cliff Edson made the motion. I think it was seconded by Chris Wright, and I think it probably was a 3-2 vote to bring this thing back. The issue was, is there going to be sufficient time to be able to address this before any final decision is made on the part of the Assembly and the thing goes to the governor?
You bring up a great point. Why is that not in our staff memo?
Because it's not common knowledge. I just
Well,
happened
how,
to
it's,
read. I
it's
just-
public, it's a public meeting.
I'll answer the question for you. I just read an email about the consideration from Art Toy this morning. I think Don probably saw the same email. And, I think that when we took an opposed position on 1199, which is what we did, that to me was sufficient direction that whenever we had a conversation, regardless of who it was on the board or anybody on staff, that this was a position that we were taking, and these were the reasons why. So I don't see why there's a feeling that somebody is out there doing things on their own.
Don?
I have to agree with Jeff in terms of, this is like a critical issue. I feel like CCWD is taking this very casually. I look at other agencies and their positions and what they're doing, and they're working very, very hard to try and stop this. I know Bob went to see Senator Hancock. I know that some of the board members feel very, very strongly about this. I know that we voted to oppose. I don't know that sending one letter is how we take something seriously. This is about at the same level as if it was wild and scenic happening on the American River. This is our home. I think that we need to ratchet things up in terms of Calaveras County. We need to be fully involved with this. Like Jeff says, I see this as the future of Calaveras County, and we're not being serious enough. I think we need to do more. I agree with Jeff. I was unhappy with the Enterprise article. I've got to call into the editor to complain about it. I don't think that we've got the support of the community because they don't recognize the ramifications. And I see CCWD as an agency. We need to be the ones that educate the people in Calaveras County about how critical this is. It's wild and scenic is really a great concept, but we have to have some balance, and we can only get that balance if we're collaborative in the process. And that's been left out here, and we have to go back to that position. We're trying to push this back, take it back, bring it up next year. Let's have an opportunity to fix this thing before it does serious damage to the county.
Well, I just have a couple questions. Bob, how did your meeting with Senator Hancock go, and what was discussed, and how was the interaction, and what did you relate to her?
Well, basically, I outlined what I had been told and experienced in the conversations with JVID, CPUD, Amador Water, and ourselves. I tried to put that all out on the plate so that she had a sense of why the agencies had taken the position they had taken with regard to wild and scenic. At the time, East Bay Mud had not yet voted, and nor had CPUD voted on an opposed position.
Hold on,
East Bay Mud-
when did you go? When did you meet with them?
I'd have to look at my calendar.
'Cause I thought it was after our last meeting, and East Bay Mud had already opposed it.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry on that. But the CPUD had not yet, apparently.
Well, I don't think
No,
she was
they
waiting
had
around
to.
for
Yeah, no, they
CPUD.
had. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm confused on this timing. I think my original conversation with, because she called me on the phone on a Saturday, and my original conversation took place before East Bay Mud and CPUD, and I'm confusing that conversation with my in-person meeting. She understood very well what some of the issues were, specifically the fact that the bulk of wild and scenic designations that exist today existed to address anadromous fish and the characterization that obstructions in the river can have a significant impact on their breeding beds and things like that. So I said that there was basically an opportunity here to look at wild and scenic from the perspective of those rivers that were upstream of the dams where you did not have fish flows. And it was important to continue with, or to begin the collaborative process in order to be able to address these issues before decisions were made. I used the example that Rem Scherzinger, who's the executive director, the general manager at NID, told me about the difficulties they're having getting a gauging station on the South Yuba, which is a designated wild and scenic river. And she was very concerned that the inability to be able to collect data in order to address future water flows in a climate change scenario could have some significant potential impact. And that language was inserted in the bill. By and large, I said that I would much prefer, if this conversation is going to continue, that it be done in a collaborative manner, just as Don stated, and that we have an opportunity to address these things, not just from the perspective of an economy, but to see where this might have value at all for any of the rivers upstream of the rim dams in the Sierra Nevada. And so I would say it was a good conversation. I was actually left with a favorable comment, a favorable feeling that she listened to the message.
What, probably so, and I think that's a very interesting conversation to have. It has nothing to do with our water rights.
Sure.
And it has, and this board has not talked about fish flows or gauging stations
But-
at all.
I'm sorry,
I mean, was the conversation of the 40 families that are hauling water from Burson, was that brought up? That's a conversation I think we need to have,
Well,
you know?
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't talk about water rights because that was the fundamental basis of the conversation. The concerns that we had that if wild and scenic were to go into place, that there would not be the availability of future water rights for the use of Calaveras County and or Amador County. And that was the whole thing. Whether or not people are hauling water because they don't have access to groundwater flows is a whole nother ballgame, which I know perfectly well that we have a lot of issues that we need to address with regard to how we're going to serve the west end of the county, and the McCalmy River will figure significantly in that.
Amador Water spent quite a bit of money and time putting together amendments for Amador County. I'm not aware that we put forth absolutely anything. I'd really like to have our attorneys look at their amendments and see if they protect our rights. So if we get to a point that there's going to be amendments that we're going to be protected. I know Amador Water feels pretty comfortable with what they've written, but if we're pushing, we may not get an opposed, we may only get amendments put in. They better protect CCWD. I mean, Amador Water's taking care of Amador Water, and I don't have any expectations that they should spend their time and money protecting us also. This is our responsibility. I'd really like to get their amendments looked at and see if we'll be covered if those amendments do get included.
Okay, Mitch, I was also unaware that you had a conversation. Was this a in-person conversation with Senator Hancock's office or a telephone conference? You said with
Both,
staff.
in office as well as on telephone. Again, I'd like to remind the board that your legislative action you took was oppose, not oppose unless amended.
I agree.
It was opposed. So when you take that legislative step of opposing legislation, you basically are saying, we're opposed. We did move forward and suggest that it be withdrawn and work in a collaborative process consistent with what Mountain Counties is putting out to get a longer-term perspective of where we're going with this. And that's been the dialogue that I've been having, which is, let's take this on to a different time frame. Let's be able to engage it in a way that satisfies the interests of the agencies as well as all the parties involved to the extent possible that cannot be done in the calendar that's available, which is, again, very consistent with what Mountain Counties have been saying. But as an agency, once we take the legislative action of oppose, certainly you're telegraphing the message very loud and clear to the author of a bill that this is not a place to spend a lot of time and energy in. And so ultimately, as they're looking for amendments, Amador County certainly has a feeling that their pending application, which will be behind everything else in place, is one of the most vulnerable things that's out there. Certainly in the sequence of water rights, it's going to be an important planning tool. But the wild and scenic is one more of many factors that we have to address as we address perfecting and utilizing the water that's there. So.
I just want to correct one thing that I thought I heard you say, that we pulled our opposition.
No.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. We didn't withdraw our opposition.
No, we requested in the letter that we were the first to suggest that she withdraw this legislation. It's in the letter, and ultimately intending that would initiate a 2-year process and perhaps a more engaged process with the upcountry agencies to talk about what needs to be protected on that river and for what purposes.
Because I made the motion, our motion was to oppose, but it was to continue to work with Amador, Calvert County, East Bay Mud to continue to discuss it. So even though our letter was opposed, we certainly said the board said with approving the motion that we were willing to continue to have discussions about it, to work with the other agencies.
As we've done.
Pardon?
As we've done.
Okay.
And with that said, what other agencies have you also worked with in that regard?
To be frank, Amador County Water Agency has been the lead. They're coordinating. We've had exchanges with CPUD in terms of the correspondence loop, but the direct coordination has been Amador County, and then the input from Mountain County's Water Resource Association.
So, there's a couple, go ahead. Go ahead, Dennis.
You know, Dawn and then Dennis?
I'd like to make a motion that we take the Amador proposed amendments and have our attorneys look at them and see if we're protected with these amendments so that we can support these amendments as something that could be added to the bill.
I'd like to see you, if that's going to be a motion we're going to vote on, I'd like to see who we would turn to make that analysis. Because we don't really have a water rights lawyer right now on contract.
I leave that to staff.
We do have a water rights attorney on contract. Kevin is still in that role, and and we've worked with Downey Brand's other attorney that we met that one day when we went down to visit Andrew, who's in their office, and so ultimately we do have water rights support through Downey Brand.
I have a different recommendation. I certainly support us doing that, but you know, this seems like this thing should have not only developed in a more collaborative fashion, as everybody likes to talk about, But, you know, this, to me, seems like this should have been founded and developed before it was presented inside Upper McCollum Watershed Authority. You know, the membership is perfect for this. It's Amador County, Calaveras County, the Amador Water Agency, Jackson Valley Irrigation District, CPUD, us, and East Bay Mud. Yeah, and it would be my recommendation that not only do we, begin to have somebody take a look at what's important for protection of our ability to use our water reservation, but that we go with a group like that, and that will force those who are trying to ram this down our throats to take into consideration the needs of the water purveyors. And I just think it's a perfect spot. Whether or not they have I know that we've evolved, the Upper McCollum Watershed Authority has evolved over the years, but I just think it's a perfect venue. Whether they have the budget to accomplish this or not, I think that that's the group that should be doing this. Okay. And it'd be much better, as with any of those things, because you're not going from one agency and then two agencies are going to another agency. You know, when every agency is in the room, you have to be a little more straightforward with each other.
Which agency are you suggesting?
Upper McCollum Watershed Authority.
Okay. And when, the only concern I have with that is the timing. When are they meeting next?
Well, I want I want the county to request that they delay the timing to accommodate our request. I mean, if Calaveras County can't put the brakes on this thing, then it truly is a water grab by Senator Hancock. I mean, seriously, what would be her motivation? There is nothing threatening the McCollum right now that, honestly, except for the leaking septic tanks, that isn't, and that's overseen by Calaveras County. You know, if they really wanted to, work on the river this year, they could go up there and fix some septic tanks. But if Calaveras County Board of Supervisors can't ask for a 2-year bill, and I don't know why they wouldn't, it makes no sense. There is no emergency on the McCollum today. As a matter of fact, I mean, throughout history, if this was such a dire need, I mean, it takes decades and millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to even develop a project. You know, that's protected. It's already protected.
Well, I agree with that. Excuse me, let me go ahead.
No, please.
I have a whole problem with this issue of wild and scenic. It's a misnomer. There's nothing about the McCollum River or almost any other river system in the Sierras that's wild and scenic. Wild and scenic to me is kind of like a concept that there's no development whatsoever on the river ever, and now we're going to make it declared wild and scenic, and we're not going to, we'll have to develop anything to, from a regulatory standpoint to develop anything. There's already, and Jeff just mentioned it, it takes years and millions of dollars to develop any kind of a project, and you've got the ability for any and every intervener to intervene. There's already protections up the wazoo for against developing anything until you've gone through a tremendous gauntlet of regulations and expanse and effort to get anything done. So there are already enough protections even without wild and scenic. And finally, what really spooks me is that our government, in its infinite wisdom, allows anything to be done once it's passed. There's no protection preventing that from morphing into something more onerous in the future. And that's one of the things that spooks me more than anything else is we get wild and scenic, and how do we know it's not going to get even more onerous in the future after it's passed?
Well, and the other part to add to your comment is, in regards to protection, nobody can do it alone. no one agency, you know, the threats that they're making about Met or somebody coming up and building a reservoir are nonsense. Nobody can go through that process alone.
Well, there's also, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I'm just saying, if there is a project on the McCollum River, it's gonna include everybody. It'll include the Conservancy, you know, they'll be at the table just like they always have been. It'll include Amador, it'll include Calaveras, it'll probably include East Bay Mud. There'll be a multi-beneficial project, and it'll be all kinds of, you know, of thought and consideration given to the environment. You know, so it's, again, my request is to request that the Board of Supervisors ask this to be postponed, and then to have certainly our legal team begin to look at what language we need to be protected. But I think the venue, we should request that the Upper McCollum Watershed Authority take this on, or at
Well,
least
well,
a different JPA formed with those groups.
Just let me, one more issue. The issue is hot right now. And by asking them to go back and let people develop their support and/or opposition for a couple of years, takes away the concept that the iron is hot right now. And they want to get this passed without allowing opposing forces to get their efforts against it passing right now, or modifying it to something different.
I agree.
Okay.
I just have to ask why.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I agree that UMRA is part of the process and will play an important role as this thing rolls out, but I really think the first steps needs to be with CAMRA, because that's an association made up specifically of upcountry agencies and counties, and we're the ones that are going to be most impacted by the wild and scenic. Page 5, this was pointed out by Brian Onetto in an email. Page 5 of East Bay Mud Staff Analysis Report said that if 1199 passes, it would probably be advantageous to East Bay Mud. So they fundamentally don't have any skin in the game. If they get the language where they can move I forgot what they call it now, the point of designation of 580 feet, they get all they need out of it. We're the ones that are going to suffer. I think we're the ones that are going to need to be able to address that issue. And I think we're going to have to do it from a position that's in alignment. From there, it can be taken to UMRA, and then ultimately probably become part of the Mookwise conversation, because everybody keeps forgetting that San Joaquin County has an interest in this thing as well, so.
Go on.
I do agree that camera is important here, and I do understand what's happening at the East Bay Mud. I also recognize that leaving East Bay Mud out of this process makes them seem like less than a partner. I feel like it's critical that we have East Bay Mud as a partner, and they recognize how important it is to support our issues. If they get to the point where they feel left out and they can make decisions outside of that partnership, then it's going to change the dynamics up here. So I like the UMRA concept. I'm concerned that UMRA has the time frame in order to make this happen, where CAMRA could make it happen real quick. But I'm not real excited about leaving East Bay Mud out of this.
I didn't suggest that we leave them out. What I
Well, they're
suggested
not part
was,
of CAMRA.
I know that, well, they come visit, but the point I'm getting to is this, that there should be alignment among the upcountry agencies. Once there's an agreement there, then, as Jeff pointed out, UMRA can take an important role.
UMRA passed oppose. So UMRA has opposed it.
Okay. And East Bay Mud's position was opposed if amended. It was a 4-1 vote, and I'm told that may come back for
It's real soft, and it's a timing issue. So that's why I'm real strongly suggesting that we don't leave East Bay Mud out. If they feel like they're not.
I wouldn't think about leaving them out, but I think we really need to to have a clear understanding of what the impact is going to be for Amador and Calaveras counties. And one other county we haven't even mentioned, probably doesn't figure prominently in this process, but it is part of UMRA, and that's Alpine.
I've had conversations with Terry Woodrow, and she recognizes the importance.
But I think San Joaquin County is going to be a big player. That's where Milkwise might come into this process.
Likewise.
Okay, we have a couple of discussions going on here. One is how we're going to carry this thing forward. We also have a motion on the table to involve a water rights attorney.
Do we need a motion for that? I think there's generally consensus that this is a good idea.
I don't know.
We have a motion.
Well, that motion didn't get,
Well, I'll second the motion. I'll be happy to second it. Can I
to do what?
suggest?
what are we doing?
Motion, go ahead, Don.
I'd like our water rights attorney to look at the language that Amador has put forward and make sure that that language, if it does ultimately end up as part of the bill, that it also protects Calaveras County Water District residents.
Can part of that examination include a comparison to the current language that exists?
I don't care.
Well, I think that's important.
I'm just interested in protecting us.
Well, I am
I
too,
think-
but I want to know that the,
I think that's a great idea, Bob, and it's in 1199 in its current state and in the amended state, and also the amendments that are being considered by Amador, and what amendments should be considered by CCWD as well. I think it's all in one discussion. If you're going to be looking at SB 99 and how it's proposed, I think if we do hire a water rights attorney, that naturally going to look at any amendments that are being proposed by our neighboring agencies, and do they benefit us? Are they good, or should they be changed to also include a beneficial end game for CCWD? So I think it would all be in the same if you were. So we do have a motion and a second on involving a water rights attorney. And I think this is a separate discussion in what we're going to do going forward with camera, but with this, let's not let this motion get away from us. Continue discussion on the motion if there is further discussion.
Well, I don't,
I'd like
we
to-
can vote on it, but I don't think we need a motion to direct staff to.
You really don't need a motion. It would provide some clarity, however, if we had some definitions behind the issues which have been thrown out as kind of general terms. I don't know if you want to put more specific behind defining issues so that as our attorneys reviewing it, they're making sure that they're addressing all the concerns that are there.
Is that a closed session discussion?
Depends on the issue, I reckon.
That's kind of what I'm,
If there's an issue that is a closed session item, then it would have to be.
Well, the motion, as I understand, is to consider the issues presented by Amador. I'm not sure that's all-inclusive enough. The issue is, do we want to propose other amendments, whether or not we support these? Or do,
I agree with Dennis.
I agree, Dennis. What I don't want to do is reinvent the wheel. I mean, they spent tens of thousands of dollars creating these amendments.
everybody's reinventing the wheel all the time.
Yeah, I don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I'd rather use Amador's work and just make sure we're covered with it.
it seems like the question is fairly straightforward, which is, and particularly if Kevin, who has, should have some, he's had some long term history of our interest, the question should be, how do we protect ourselves from wild and scenic?
Yeah.
Protecting Amador, although I support them and I want to, I understand that could certainly be something that he could look at, but I think the question we need to ask our water rights attorney is, how do we protect ourselves from wild and scenic?
Yeah, no, and I think at the
And
same time.
even if all we get is a report, and maybe we give them, we can, maybe Mitch, we need to talk about what sort of report we are requesting, because it could go, we don't want to go on forever, we don't have the time for that.
And that's why the clarity of which, if there's a burning issue out there that somebody hasn't been able to articulate because of the open session, then we probably should hear that. The more generic issues, of course, have been addressed or are certainly there. But I'm a little concerned that if I ask Kevin to do this review, it's all about protecting Calaveras County water's interests. And the language that's been proposed by Amador as it's currently formatted, isn't going anywhere. So what we have to be very clear about is what are our issues and what do we see as vulnerable as we.
When you say it's not going anywhere, what does that mean? It's not being considered by the Conservancy or Senator Hancock?
It's not going to be considered any further with Senator Hancock. They've had that in hand already, and you can see the amendment that was recently proposed, which was a acknowledgement of future water, or acknowledgement of water rights and pending water development in the above the proposed designation. But so now it's a matter of which
Is that in our
Calaveras issues are we ensuring that we're trying to address.
So I guess I haven't, did we get a copy of the amended, the bill's been amended?
The bill was amended and that came out yesterday. No, it's not in your hands because I don't have it printed off.
Okay. Can we get that at some point today?
Also want to point
Well,
out that.
Director Dean has read that amendment a couple times into the record, but we can get
No,
it
that's
in your
not-
You want to
hands.
see the copy?
Yeah, I want a copy. I mean,
Also want to point out that this bill is, almost every other river that's been designated wild and scenic has amendments specific to it. And there's 12 pages naming every single river in here. This is very, very common. And the fact that this thing is being, on a fast train, on a fast pace is not allowing the Mokelumne River to have its own designation and its own. It is a collaborative process, or it should have been more of a collaborative process going forward. I mean, just looking at the Salmon River, the Trinity River, there's several paragraphs on each of these. Pack Saddle Creek, Kelly Creek, Smith River. I mean, every single one has different items that, and it is good to see that there are some amendments that are going forward with the Mokelumne. But we do need to, and I think it would be incumbent on us to create some amendments that do protect CCWD and at least have them proposed.
Well, wouldn't that take us beyond the vote on this whole issue?
I can withdraw my proposal. I just want to make sure that this gets done.
Okay, if we don't need a motion on this, well, I think we can direct staff. I think staff's got a pretty good direction of what we want to do going forward. At this point, if the board is satisfied.
I just want to stress the timing factor. I mean, this is going to roll over into the assembly, and it's going to go lightning fast. So we don't have months, we don't have weeks and weeks and weeks. We need to take care of this right away. We're playing catch up real bad.
Well, how do you, we have a motion and a second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Well, can you do that before your second withdraws?
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I'll follow Don's lead on that. Happy to withdraw it.
The second's been withdrawn, the motion's been withdrawn. Staff has clear instructions moving forward with our water rights attorney.
they do?
Good. I'm glad for that because I was afraid that if we pass this amendment or this motion, that the implication would be, well, if now we can get this amended like we like, we're going to come around to supporting this. And I don't want to give that message that we're going to turn around and support this at this time without having clear directions that this is what we want to do.
Well,
One of the things that I think is important is not to take have an attorney give us the best case scenario if the amendment said this. We're looking for something that would possibly work, an amendment to this bill similar to an AWA when they were in our meeting last month and presented their position as opposing 1199. Gene Masibo, the general manager, pointed out two paragraphs consistent with other rivers that if implemented on 1199 with the words Mokelumne River in there instead of the other river, that would work for them. I don't think we're recreating the wheel here, but we are asking, have an attorney not create something that is advantageous for CCWD, but for advantageous for CCWD and would work with the bill and as it's being pushed forward by Senator Hancock's office. I hope, is that,
What I heard was kind of directly contrary to what I just heard Director Dooley ask for, which is not to create an appearance that there's going to be something that's going to move forward if amended. If you would like that as a work product, that's okay. We can do that. It's just, I've got two senses of different directions here.
Well, I don't think that they're contradictory. I think that we're still opposed. And if it would seem to me to be responsible to have both scenarios. Because there may be another reason that we decide to oppose it, even after having our opportunities fully protected. But until we have, a legal definition of what we feel we need to be protected, I think we have to stay opposed. But I'm not saying that if we get language from our attorney, we still have to vote on that as to whether or not we want to make that, give that request to them, and then and that may not pass. I don't think that they're exclusive. I think that we have to keep an open mind, but that's kind of the whole point, certainly of my anger on this thing is, somebody is smarter than us, which is not tough to believe, but they're running this thing on the high-speed rail, so to speak, for a reason, and I can't quite figure it out. I mean, if it isn't intentional, what the hell is going on? It's either intentional, or they should slow down or stop it and let us get some answers so we have a better opportunity to understand it.
My sense is, and I'll just take the one thing you said, Scott, to issue is that you're talking about let's do something that satisfies everybody, including us and everybody else. I think that we should put CCWD first, regardless of what the other agencies deal with, and then look how we can bring them in to be acceptable. But we need to be looking out for CCWD first and foremost.
and I would agree 100%, Dennis, if we were the ones making a decision on this Senate bill. All we can do is write a letter and provide our position and direction. We're not the ones making a decision. And so with the fact that one of the outcomes could be that this passes in its current form, that would be the worst case scenario. If it would pass in an amended form, that wouldn't be quite so bad. And we didn't even know that option was available, or we never looked at that option. That's the option I want to look at. There's a chance that it could be opposed, and the legislature would not pass it. And so I'm looking at that middle ground, at least to research it and know about it going forward.
Well, I'm just saying that it's like going into a game thinking, okay, I want the outcome to make everybody happy. And I'm not sure that in a contest that's what your ultimate goal should be.
You haven't been to a Little League game in a while.
And I don't think it is all or nothing. I do think that we should really research.
I understand what you're saying, and I can't disagree with what you're saying for the most part. I'm just saying that first and foremost, our goal is to get something to benefit CCWD first, and then all the other people that we are concerned with secondly.
But the only problem I see with that is if we put together a letter of support if amended, if we do decide to take that position at some point of time, if we do have language that we could live with, or that would be beneficial to us, yet still protect all the things that we're worried about in this bill going forward, there wouldn't be anyone else supporting our position. And so that's why I'm thinking you got to look at everyone else, all the other players.
You're taking two opposing points and trying to work them together, and we may end up being pushed to that point, which is okay, but first and foremost, we need to figure out what will work out best for CCWD. in
Okay.
Calaveras County.
And maybe in involving council, we could look at both positions.
Well,
What would be absolutely best in the word and language would be, here's some language,
Well, I don't disagree with that. I just figure that going into a contest with which I kind of view this somewhat as a contest, is that you're looking to compromise before the game starts.
Just, I sort of agree with Dennis. I mean, our position is opposed. We need to get the information to decide whether or not we want to make any amendments. You know, if amendments are worth making, or what's going to happen. You know, I'm hopeful that this thing will get pushed back, but I think it's important that we take this a step further besides directing staff. I think we need to, first of all, I'm still unclear of what the Board of Supervisors did yesterday. Was it an agendized item?
No,
But they voted?
to put it on the agenda.
They have their own set of rules, Jeff.
They voted to put it on the agenda.
But then,
When?
well, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Somebody, and I don't know who, stood up and said, we won't be able to agendize this for 2 or 3 months after the bill is completed.
All right, so the Board of Supervisors did nothing except to have a little showcase yesterday.
You know,
Okay.
in a way, they did something because they agreed that this is worth looking at again.
What was the vote?
3-2, I think.
By who, though?
Ponte, Edson, and Wright to bring it back for discussion.
after it had been decided.
All right, well, this is my request, that we send a letter to the Board of Supervisors requesting that Senator Hancock withdraw the bill for further consideration. And then we make a request for the other agencies to consider UMRA as a venue for review, knowing that we may have to kick in a little money to increase UMRA's budget, or have some other form of, some other venue that's suitable, but in that line of view, I think we need to make that request. And then I think we need to assign a staff member to be our update as opposed to directors. I don't know if Larry's the right man for the job. It seems like he's probably is. If that, that's really kind of up to Mitch, but I think that we need to have a dedicated staff member that's going to update us. I appreciate all the work all the directors are doing, but I think we got to tighten this ship and begin to let staff do what staff does best, which is inform us so we can make decisions. So that's my request.
I would only add to that request that the process begin with camera first. And interestingly enough, they have money, if there's money that needs to be spent. So we may not have to pull anything out of our budget. But I really do think that the upcountry agencies need to have a sense of alignment before it's carried to UMRA. But I do agree that the placement of this process is appropriate at UMRA.
Well, I like the idea of including East Bay Mud. I was given no indication that they were. I think that East Bay Mud recognizes that they'll never do anything up here without our support, and I think that we have built a relationship over the last 15 years that I don't really want to exclude them at this point, but whatever takes the longest is fine by me.
I have had discussions with East Bay Mud relative to this issue, and to be frank, there's a fair amount of pressure on that board to go with support of this legislation, regardless of the upcountry's involvement. And their board of directors feels very strongly about observing the partnerships that they've worked very hard to because while I would agree with you that in the last dozen, maybe 15 years, East Bay Mud has worked really hard in consideration of upcountry interests. To be frank, prior to that, they really didn't give a rat. And they've worked hard to get that that partnership in place, and I know that their board of directors does respect that, but they're getting a heck of a lot of pressure from Bay Area interests on this issue.
Well, I'm consumed with the thought of the old Mark Twain saying, after all has been said and done, there's more said than done.
I'm very clear on the letter. I'm
Well, I don't know that the board has supported this. I wish someone would speak up. I mean,
I'll
if we don't.
support all of Jeff's recommendations.
That's where I was going, is to help shape the motion here, and that I'm very clear on the letter to the Board of Supervisors. What I'm not clear of is the UMRA camera in the lead component of this motion.
I think both of them are going to have it on an upcoming agenda, both camera and UMRA, most likely, if, and I do think.
Well, the second part only works if they put the bill on hold.
It's a practical matter, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and ultimately, whether it's a camera in the lead or an UMRA in the lead, I think if that's the ruthers of this board, that you ought to clarify what that's going to be. Otherwise, we're going to be back into left hand, right hand, who said what, when did they do this, and trying to piece it together again. So I'm just looking for
I don't think leaving
clarity.
East Bay Mud out of the discussion or out of the meeting that we want to have is beneficial to us at this point. And I do think dragging them to the table is very, very important, and that would be only through UMRA and not camera. Therefore, I would support having this done at UMRA.
The executive director for UMRA is on vacation right now, so he's unavailable to even have discussions about this.
Well, let's see, we can have our preference, but it's not going to mean anything unless the Board of Supervisors can use all their weight, which they must have, they must be really super powerful to get a senator to write a bill to, shut down a river. Seems like they should be able to stop it.
It was Friends of the River that got to push the bill, and they're not even a local agency.
It wouldn't have gone forward if the
Couldn't
Board of
have happened
Supervisors
without-
didn't.
That's true,
The
that's true.
supervisors.
The big push came because Calaveras County Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 to support it originally.
Has any other agency supported it?
I saw a letter stating that there were a bunch of businesses and agencies, but I don't know the agencies.
Well,
I
know of
mean,
any
other
public
than
agency.
NGOs?
other than ours.
I don't know. I don't think so.
If that isn't an indication, I'm just kind of curious about it.
Yeah. My guess is.
So are we in agreement that we should request the Board of Supervisors make a request to withdraw this bill until it's further researched, or what's the proper thing we should ask for, a 2-year bill?
Yeah, I think you can phrase it in many ways, but ultimately, you're looking for the author to withdraw it or put it onto a 2-year agenda.
I think we should probably just offer to withdraw.
Because you have to remember, this was a gut and amend. So
Yes.
this bill had time and maturity already, or the bill number had time, maturity, and schedule already. So at this point, it just needs to be put onto a 2-year program.
I support Jeff's position, but I'd also like it to go out as a press release from CCWD.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, do we need a motion on this, Mitch, to write a couple letters?
No,
Or one letter?
I think the record's clear.
Okay. Also, as part of this matter, I'd like to create an ad hoc committee and appoint Director Davidson and Director Stump to follow this a little more closely.
Okay.
And to keep in contact with our, and we will be given a staff member at Jeff's request or whether it be yourself or you be appointing.
I'll have to look to see what staff members we can create to do it, but that was the request. We'll certainly accommodate.
And then report back, the ad hoc committee would report back, I'm going to ask each meeting,
Yeah.
because this is rolling quickly. Okay, old business. Completed,
You may want to ask for public comment.
before we leave, item 4, Director Davidson has made a good point. Old business, in this discussion, do we have any public comment? Any members of the public wish to comment on this item, agenda item, before we leave it? And we do have one.
Hi, Frank. I was at the Board of Supervisor meeting yesterday, and just so you know, the feel of what they were proposing was to bring everyone into the room and talk about it. That was the feel, not taking a position one way or the other, but to bring everyone, all the players who felt that they weren't included before, they want them all in the same conversation. That was all.
What was their, how are they going to accomplish it?
That's to be decided. They're talking about the time frame just like you are. But it was.
So they didn't come up to a conclusion
It was
of,
to be inclusive. Their whole thing is to be inclusive. So when we talk about putting walls around and only talking about this or that, that doesn't work. So they were all talking about being inclusive and inviting whatever players had an interest into the conversation. That's all.
Marty, did they have a time frame for doing this? Any
Well,
future date that was
the
discussed?
Budget hearings coming up, so that's taking a chunk. So they put it back to the CAO to look at the calendar and see what can happen. But there was nothing definite. that I
Okay,
recall.
and nothing in the immediate future that they have planned on their agenda that came up in this meeting?
They left it to the CAO, so we'll find out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we move on to item 5, our workshop, let's have a quick break. 5-minute break, please. County, what the hell?
Mr. Diamond has passed me a secret communique which says that our escrow with CHIPS closed on Friday. So they are moving forward, making the progress. So,
wow. I would have bet against that.
Okay, we're back in session. Item number 5 on our agenda, Strategic Plan Development Workshop with General Manager Mitch Dion and Jeffrey Meyer, Director of Administrative Services.
well, we're here to kick off as a workshop process, strategic planning. So ultimately, as we move through with strategic planning, we just kind of wanted to get a feel that there's a progression that we're going to have to talk about. The strategic plan process is a tool to achieve the organization for organizing. It's all about positioning and alignments. So it's that soft and fuzzy stuff sometimes, but that reflects your culture, your behaviors. So you end up with a lot of adjectives as opposed to verbs for action. It's a long-range horizon. It's certainly something that's at least 5 to, for many years, out beyond that. It's got to be flexible, adaptive, simple, clear, and written. So again, I don't think there's any magic to what we put up here, but it's a deliberate process that we're wanting to start with a series of workshops for the board for the next few months. Calaveras County Water last strategic plan was done in 2003. And in 2003, they had proposed